I think glissando is an underused and often underdeveloped technique on guitar. It's less fashionable than it once was. With 19th century guitarists, it was often a feature of their performances, even though it wasn't usually written into the musical score. However, later, notably with Taraga, you find it in almost every score, although players today tend to omit them from their performances. And when they are kept in, it's not always convincing. I've even winced at one or two of my earlier recordings with glissandi. It's very easy to play an unattractive, thoughtless glissando. Sometimes, for example, you hear the opening of Marietta played something like this. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that kind of glissando. I think there's a time and a place for it. I just don't think it's here. I think it's surely better and more expressive to play it something like this. Or like this. There are many different ways you could do it, and this is what's often neglected. And as I say, I've been guilty of this myself. We often neglect the different types and the different gradations of glissandi. Now, Emilio Pujol, who was a student of Taraga, wrote a method which gives various examples and an excellent summary of the different types of glissandi. It's a much neglected book, partly because it's hard to get hold of, but also because it's quite dense and long. I've got several volumes here, but in my opinion, it remains unsurpassed. Now, Pujol explains that as you play a glissando, you can change the level of pressure that's applied to the string. So, for example, taking again the C to the E at the beginning of Marietta, you can increase the pressure as you go towards the E, or you can decrease the pressure as you go towards the E. And by doing this, you can decide whether you want to emphasize the beginning or the end note, depending on which is most important. Pujol sensibly advises to decrease the pressure when going to an offbeat note, or increase the pressure when going to an accented note. Now, this isn't always obvious which is required, or desirable, I should say. Take Marietta again. The first note is in theory an offbeat. It's a third beat. But in a mazurka, this beat is often accented. However, Taraga also gives us an accent on the beat after. So I think the glissando is there to serve as both an emphasis and a softening, which is not a contradiction. It draws your attention to the note, but without heavily accenting it. Of course, other interpretations are possible, but I think it sounds nice, something like this. Actually, maybe even softer than that. Now, the way a glissando is notated might give you an indication of how to play it. If the first note is an appoggiatura, then you might want to give it more weight, whereas if it's an acciaccatura, then it needs to be played faster, probably with more weight on the destination note. No, not violently, as I say, but just more weight. Now, in his third book, Pujol gives some examples of this, which are quite useful. So I'll put them on the screen, and he has some acciaccaturas here, and you'll see that just quite fast little semitone movements. Played the wrong note. That one there. Whereas he has some appoggiaturas going downwards, because of course you can have downward glissandi too, which are very pretty, like this. And they sound something like this. So the first two are just left-hand slurred, and the third one is a glissando. Now you see, it's much more attractive to play like that than like this. That's too abrupt. So when you have an appoggiatura like this, it should have more of a sighing quality. Fast glissandi, of course, have their role. They're very good for lively music, or as a kind of melodic surprise if you're playing something. Something like that. You might want to really surprise the listener. But often it can sound just like a fast car whizzing by. This this effect here, which I just don't like. It has its place, but generally I think it's not appropriate. A more gradual glissando is usually more beautiful. Now, with a glissando that covers a large distance, you can even subtly change the speed mid-glissando. Take, for example, this downward glissando in Rosita by Taraka. It goes down like this. Now you can play that fast, or you can do a slow one, but you do tend to lose the volume a bit. I quite like to start it a bit slow and then go fast, like maybe slightly better like this. You see, there are various possibilities. Of course, you always must look where you're going, especially for these long ones. It's very easy to go and overshoot or even undershoot. So yes, that's some of the ways you can play a glissando. I hope it was useful and encourages you to experiment with all types of glissandi. Thank you for watching.